Judge Holden is one of the most enigmatic and terrifying characters in Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian. He is a figure of immense power, intelligence, and pure evil, representing the darkest aspects of human nature and the universe itself. Standing at 7 feet tall, hairless, and ageless, the Judge is a towering presence both physically and symbolically. One of the most popular interpretations of the Judge is that he is the devil himself, a modern-day Mephistopheles. This interpretation is supported by the religious and mystical imagery that permeates Blood Meridian. The novel is steeped in Christian symbolism, from the desecration of crosses to references to the wrath of God. The Judge is often associated with satanic motifs. He is a skilled fiddle player, a trait traditionally linked to the devil. He makes mysterious deals with those around him, most notably with John Joel Glanton, the leader of Glanton Gang. The nature of this deal is never fully revealed, but it is implied to be a terrible covenant that binds the gang to the Judge's will. The Judge's supernatural qualities further reinforce this interpretation. He is described as not looking particularly human, with his massive hairless frame and almost infantile appearance. He is a charmer, able to dazzle people with his intellect and charisma, but his true nature is one of destruction. For example, when the gang stops at a town, the Judge befriends the governor, impressing him with his knowledge and education. Meanwhile, the gang tears the town apart with their violence, leaving it in ruins. The Judge's role as a tempter is also evident in his interactions with the gang members. When he first meets Glanton and Tobin, he saves their lives by creating gunpowder from natural ingredients, allowing them to defeat a group of Native Americans. But this rescue comes at a cost. The gang was already violent before he joined them, but then things get even worse. Under his influence, their brutality becomes completely reckless. The Judge doesn't believe in right or wrong. To him, war is the only true power, the only thing that matters. His way of thinking poisons the gang, pulling them deeper into chaos and destruction. The Judge's name itself is significant. In Christian tradition, the ultimate judge is God, and any human judgment is derived from his will. By naming himself the Judge, Holden positions himself as a usurper of divine authority, much like Lucifer in Paradise Lost. The Judge's desire to corrupt and destroy aligns with the traditional role of the devil as the tempter who leads humanity away from God. His targeting of children and the innocent further verifies this interpretation as it reflects the devil's aim to defile purity and innocence. The Judge's philosophy of war as God also aligns with the Hobbesian idea of state of nature, where life is nasty, brutish, and short. He sees violence as the fundamental truth of existence, and he revels in it. The Glanton Gang, under his influence, becomes a manifestation of this philosophy, engaging in senseless violence and destruction. Even when the gang is eventually defeated by the Yuma tribe, the Judge remains unmoved. His allegiance is not to any individual or group, but to the spirit of violence itself. This indifference to the fate of the gang further supports the idea that the Judge is an archon, concerned only with maintaining the cycle of violence and corruption. Beyond the supernatural interpretation, the Judge can also be seen as a psychological archetype, the eternal trickster. In many mythologies and belief systems, the trickster is a figure who offers gifts that come with hidden costs. The Judge embodies this role perfectly. He offers the gang power, freedom, and purpose, but the cost is their humanity. The gang members, lured by the promise of riches and dominance, become increasingly brutal and senseless in their violence. In the final pages of the novel, the Judge kills the kid, the novel's protagonist. This act is often seen as the Judge's ultimate triumph, but it can also be interpreted as a sign of his failure. The kid is the only member of the gang who never fully gives himself over to the Judge's philosophy. While he participates in the gang's violence, he never fully embraces the Judge's nihilism. By killing the kid, the Judge acknowledges that he could not corrupt him completely. Whether interpreted as the devil or the eternal trickster, he embodies the worst aspects of human nature and the universe. His philosophy of violence and nihilism is a temptation to our darkest instincts, offering power and freedom at the cost of our humanity. Ramsay Bolton is one of the most hated characters in Game of Thrones. He is cruel, sadistic, and power-hungry. Unlike other villains who wanted power or revenge, Ramsay just likes hurting people. He is a sadist who enjoys the pain and humiliation he causes. He is a chaotic character who thrives in the immoral world of Westeros, where power is gained through brutality and fear. Ramsay is the illegitimate son of Rose Bolton, the Lord of the Dreadfort. This fact shapes a lot of who he is. He was born out of wedlock and raised under his father's cold, calculating rule. Because of this, he always feels like he has something to prove. His status as a bastard makes him insecure, and he hates the shame that comes with it. To earn his father's approval, he becomes more and more brutal, doing whatever it takes to secure his place in the family. This need for validation fuels everything he does, pushing him to dominate and control others. Ramsay isn't just cruel because of how he was raised, it's part of who he is. Even as a child, he enjoyed violence and causing pain. His father, Roose Bolton, only encouraged this. Roose isn't concerned with right or wrong.
The Lannisters send their regards.
He believes power comes from fear, and Ramsay's cruelty is just another way to control people. This dynamic between father and son is central to Ramsay's character, as it highlights the ways in which cruelty and violence are passed down through generations, creating a never-ending cycle of fear and cruelty. One of the things that makes Ramsay so terrifying is his love for flaying people. The Boltons are known for their cruelty, and their sigil, a flayed man, says it all. But Ramsay takes it even further. For him, flaying isn't just about pain. It's a way to break people mentally, to show them who's in charge. He uses it to scare his enemies and make sure no one dares to cross him. It's not just a method of torture. It's proof of how much he enjoys making others suffer. He doesn't just do it for power, he does it because he likes it. Ramsay's torture of Theon Greyjoy is one of his most brutal acts. After capturing Theon during the War of the Five Kings, he doesn't just hurt him, he completely breaks him. For months, he tortures Theon physically and mentally. He strips away his identity, renames him Reek, and forces him to act like a scared, submissive servant. This isn't just punishment. It's Ramsay proving his power, showing that he can turn a proud noble into nothing. Theon's transformation into Reek is one of the most disturbing parts of the series. Ramsay isn't just brutal, he's a master manipulator. He knows how to mess with people's minds just as much as their bodies. He uses fear, deception, and mind games to keep control. One of the most chilling examples of Ramsay's manipulation is his treatment of Sansa Stark. After marrying Sansa as part of a political alliance, Ramsay subjects her to a campaign of psychological and physical abuse designed to break her spirit and assert his dominance. He isolates her from her allies, humiliates her in front of others, and uses her past traumas against her. Ramsay's reign of terror reaches its climax during the Battle of the Bastards, a brutal and bloody conflict between Ramsay and Jon Snow for control of Winterfell. The battle is a culmination of Ramsay's cruelty and ambition as he seeks to solidify his power and eliminate his enemies. Ramsay's tactics during the battle are a reflection of his sadistic nature, as he uses psychological warfare and brutal violence to gain the upper hand. He sacrifices his own men, using them as bait to lure Jon Snow into a trap. As the battle turns into pure chaos, Ramsay doesn't panic. He enjoys every second of it. The Battle of the Bastards is also a turning point for Ramsay's character, as it marks the beginning of his downfall. Despite his cruelty and cunning, Ramsay is ultimately undone by his own arrogance and overconfidence. He underestimates Jon Snow and the loyalty he inspires in his followers, and he fails to anticipate the arrival of Sansa and the Knights of the Vale. His defeat is one of the most satisfying moments in the series. After everything he's done, he finally gets what he deserves. Pennywise the Dancing Clown, the creepy villain from Stephen King's It, is one of the scariest characters ever. He isn't just a killer, he's the embodiment of fear itself, a shape-shifting entity that toys with his victims' minds and exposes their deepest anxieties. Pennywise laughs at rules. He's pure, unadulterated evil, a predator that has tormented Derry, Maine for centuries. Pennywise's most unsettling ability is shape-shifting into whatever his victims fear the most. This makes him utterly terrifying because he could be anything. To one child, he might appear as a monstrous clown with razor-sharp teeth and glowing eyes. To another, he might be a werewolf, a mummy, or even a twisted version of their parents. But Pennywise's true form is far more ancient and incomprehensible. He's from another dimension, a being of pure malevolence that defies human understanding. Pennywise's shapeshifting isn't just for scares, it's a reflection of his essence as fear itself. Fear is fluid, changing depending on the person and situation. Pennywise adapts to his victims' fears, making him a universal threat. That's why he targets children. They're more easily frightened and their imaginations are vivid and unfettered. Pennywise exploits this to deceive his victims before revealing his true, horrifying self. One intriguing aspect of Pennywise is the Ritual of Chud, a bizarre battle of wills in a different realm. It's not a physical fight, but a mental one, where individuals confront their deepest fears and use their imagination to defeat the entity. It's a metaphor for fighting fear, a reminder that you have to face it head-on. In the book, The Losers Club, a group of kids who band together to fight Pennywise, learn about the Ritual of Chud from an ancient turtle-like creature named Maturin, who represents the forces of good in the universe. The ritual involves biting Pennywise's tongue and engaging in a mental battle, using belief to weaken and defeat him. This is crucial because it demonstrates that fear isn't just external, it's internal too. To defeat Pennywise, the losers must confront their own fears, proving that believing in yourself is the ultimate weapon against fear. Pennywise has plagued Derry for eons, returning every 27 years to feast on fear and human lives. This cycle represents the persistence of evil. Like fear, Pennywise is ever present, resurfacing no matter how many times he's seemingly destroyed. The 27-year cycle also mirrors the cycle of life and death. Generations come and go, and so does Pennywise, preying on new children who are unaware of his existence. This cycle creates a sense of inevitability, suggesting that no matter what anyone does, Pennywise will always return. This is a chilling notion, the idea that evil can't be eradicated, only resisted. Pennywise's clown persona isn't accidental. Clowns are typically perceived as fun and innocent, which is a perfect disguise for something that thrives on fear and pain. As a clown, Pennywise deceives children, luring them in with promises of fun before revealing his true nature. This is deeply unsettling because it demonstrates that evil often hides behind a friendly facade. Pennywise's carnival act is also incredibly twisted. He enjoys tormenting his victims, instilling fear before killing them. This is evident when he interacts with Georgie Denbrough, the child whose death sets the story in motion. Pennywise appears friendly at first, but when Georgie reaches for his lost paper boat, Pennywise's mouth gapes open, revealing grotesque teeth, and he attacks. He tears off Georgie's arm, dragging him into the sewers and leaving behind only blood and a grieving brother. That is Pennywise's modus operandi: lies, deception, and horrific violence. Pennywise's clown form is just a mask. His true form is far more terrifying and difficult to comprehend. In the book, he's actually an ancient creature called It, older than the universe itself. It resembles a gigantic spider with glowing eyes, but that's just one manifestation. Its true nature is beyond human comprehension, pure chaos, and evil that transcends time and space. This cosmic aspect of Pennywise elevates him beyond a mere monster. He becomes a symbol of existential dread. He's not just a threat to Derry, he's a threat to reality itself. He challenges the notion that the universe is rational, suggesting that it's governed by forces that we can't fathom. This is cosmic horror, the idea that some things in the universe are so vast and unfathomable that they render human existence seemingly meaningless. Despite his immense power, Pennywise isn't invincible. The Losers Club defeats him, at least temporarily, by working together and believing. This is a central theme in the book. Fear can only be conquered through unity and the human spirit. The losers overcome Pennywise not because they're physically stronger, but because they confront their fears and stand together. This is evident in the final battle between the losers and Pennywise. After performing the ritual of Chud, the losers weaken Pennywise by facing their own fears and refusing to surrender. This courage is what allows them to prevail, proving that facing fear together is the only way to defeat it. Anton Chigurh, the relentless and inscrutable antagonist of Cormac McCarthy's No Country for Old Men, is not merely a man. He is a harbinger of fate, a specter of death that stalks the edges of existence with an eerie, mechanical precision. At the heart of Chigurh's character is his belief in fate and how random life can be. He doesn't see himself as a killer, but as someone who carries out destiny's plan. He thinks everything happens because it is meant to, not because of personal choices. This idea shows up clearly in the way he uses a coin toss. It's not just a game of luck for him, it's like a ritual that shows how the world really works. When Chigurh tells someone to call heads or tails, he isn't giving them a real choice. Instead, he's proving that choice doesn't really matter.
This philosophy is both terrifying and fascinating because it strips away the illusion of free will. Chigurh's victims are not killed because of their actions or decisions. They are killed because fate has decided it. This is evident in his encounter with the gas station proprietor, where Chigurh forces the man to call the coin toss. The man's life hangs in the balance, not because of anything he has done, but because of the arbitrary flip of a coin. Chigurh stays completely calm the whole time, which makes it even creepier.
Chigurh sees the world in a way that most people don't. He rejects the idea of good and evil, right and wrong, and instead operates according to his own internal logic. This makes him particularly dangerous because he is not constrained by the moral codes that govern most people. For Chigurh, murder is not a crime. It is simply a necessary action dictated by circumstance. His lack of empathy and remorse is chilling, as is his ability to justify his actions with cold, clinical precision. Chigurh's way of thinking is most evident in his interactions with Carla Jean Moss, the wife of Llewellyn Moss. When Chigurh confronts Carla Jean in her home, he offers her the same coin toss he has offered others. However, Carla Jean refuses to play along, insisting that the choice is not hers to make. Chigurh's response is both chilling and revealing. The coin don't have no say, it's just you. In this moment, Chigurh exposes the heart of his philosophy, the illusion of choice. He believes that people are ultimately powerless in the face of fate, and that their actions are meaningless in the grand scheme of things. Carla Jean's refusal to accept this logic does not save her. It only reinforces Chigurh's belief in the inevitability of her death. Chigurh's role as a hunter is central to his character. He is relentless, methodical, and utterly devoid of mercy. His pursuit of Llewellyn Moss, who has stolen a suitcase full of money, is not driven by a desire for revenge or greed, but by a sense of duty. Chigurh sees himself as a man who must complete his task, no matter the cost. This single-minded determination makes him incredibly dangerous, as he is willing to go to any lengths to achieve his goal. Chigurh's way of killing is as brutal as it is efficient. He uses a captive bolt pistol, a tool normally used to kill cattle. This choice is symbolic of his view of humanity. To him, people are no different from animals, and their lives can be ended just as easily. The bolt pistol is also a reflection of Chigurh's detachment from his actions. He does not kill out of anger or passion. He kills because it is necessary. Chigurh is not just a character. He is a symbol of the changing world in which the novel is set. The title, No Country for Old Men, shows that the world isn't what it used to be. The old rules and moral values don't matter anymore. Chigurh represents this new world order, where violence is random, senseless, and devoid of meaning. He is a product of a society that has lost its way, where the old rules no longer apply and where chaos reigns supreme. This is particularly evident in the character of Sheriff Ed Tom Bell, the novel's moral center. Bell is an old-fashioned lawman who believes in justice, duty, and the rule of law. However, as the novel progresses, Bell becomes increasingly disillusioned with the world around him. He is unable to comprehend the level of violence and depravity that Chigurh represents, and he ultimately retires, feeling that he is no longer equipped to deal with the evils of the modern world. Chigurh is the complete opposite of Bell, and their contrast shows how much society has fallen apart. One of the most striking aspects of Chigurh's character is his seeming indestructibility. Throughout the novel, he survives numerous encounters that would have killed a lesser man. He is shot, injured, and pursued by law enforcement, yet he always manages to escape. This invincibility reinforces the idea that Chigurh is not just a man, but a force of nature. He is unstoppable, not because of his physical strength or cunning, but because he represents something larger than himself, the inevitability of fate and the futility of resistance. This is most evident in the novel's final scenes, where Chigurh is involved in a car accident. Despite being severely injured, he walks away from the wreck, demonstrating his resilience and determination. The accident does not slow him down. If anything, it strengthens his resolve. Dolores Umbridge, one of the most reviled characters in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series. She's a perfect example of bureaucratic evil. Unlike Voldemort, who spreads fear and chaos, she operates differently. She hides her cruelty behind rules, order, and a fake, sugary sweet personality. But underneath all that pink and politeness, she's just as dangerous. At first glance, Dolores Umbridge appears almost comical. She is short, round, and always dressed in frilly pink outfits. She has a voice that is described as high-pitched, girlish, and simpering. Her office at Hogwarts is filled with decorative plates featuring images of kittens, and she has a habit of punctuating her sentences with a fake, girlish cough. But don't let the pink fool you. Umbridge's sweetness is a weapon. She uses it to manipulate those around her, presenting herself as a harmless bureaucrat while quietly dismantling any resistance to her authority. Her polite, almost cloying mannerisms make it difficult for people to see her as a threat until it's too late. This duality is what makes her so dangerous. She is a wolf in sheep's clothing, a tyrant hiding behind a smile. Umbridge's role as the senior undersecretary to the Minister of Magic and later as the High Inquisitor at Hogwarts gives her immense power, which she wields with brutal efficiency. Her mission at Hogwarts is clear: to bring the school under the Ministry's control and suppress any dissent, particularly regarding the return of Voldemort. She does this through a combination of strict rules, harsh punishments, and psychological manipulation. Her educational decrees, which she introduces one after another, strip away the freedoms of both students and teachers, turning Hogwarts into a place of fear and repression. One of her most infamous acts is the use of blood quills as a form of punishment. When Harry refuses to stop spreading the truth about Voldemort's return, Umbridge forces him to write lines with a quill that carves the words into his skin. The phrase, "I must not tell lies," is etched into his hand, a physical reminder of her cruelty and her determination to silence the truth. This act is not just about punishment, it's about control. Umbridge wants to break Harry's spirit, to make him submit to her authority, and she does it all with a smile on her face. What makes Umbridge particularly loathsome is her hypocrisy. She presents herself as a paragon of virtue, someone who values order, rules, and the greater good, but in reality, she is corrupt, self-serving, and utterly devoid of empathy. She uses the language of morality to justify her actions, claiming that her harsh methods are necessary for the safety and stability of the wizarding world. But her true motivation is power. She thrives on control, on the ability to bend others to her will. Her obsession with rules and regulations is not about fairness or justice, it's about maintaining her own authority. This hypocrisy is most evident in her treatment of the students at Hogwarts. She claims to care about their education and well-being, but her actions prove otherwise. She bans practical defense against the dark arts lessons, leaving the students unprepared for the dangers they face. She punishes anyone who dares to question her authority, using fear and intimidation to keep them in line, and she shows no remorse for the harm she causes, believing that her actions are justified because they serve her own twisted sense of order. Umbridge's cruelty is not limited to physical punishment. She is also a master of psychological manipulation. She uses fear, humiliation, and isolation to break the spirits of those who oppose her. Her fake cough, which she uses to interrupt and belittle others, is a small but effective tool of control. Her treatment of Professor Trelawney is particularly telling. When Umbridge fires Trelawney from her position as divination teacher, she does so with a cold, clinical efficiency. She shows no compassion for Trelawney's distress, no recognition of her humanity. To Umbridge, Trelawney is just an obstacle to be removed, a problem to be solved. This lack of empathy is a hallmark of Umbridge's character. She sees people not as individuals with thoughts and feelings, but as tools to be used or discarded as she sees fit. Umbridge's true power lies in her ability to operate within the system. Unlike Voldemort, who seeks to overthrow the Ministry of Magic, Umbridge thrives within it. She uses the bureaucracy to her advantage, manipulating laws and regulations to serve her own ends. She is a product of the system, a reflection of its flaws and failures. Her rise to power is a testament to how easily authority can be corrupted, how quickly rules can be twisted into tools of oppression. This is what makes Umbridge such a terrifying character. Umbridge's eventual downfall is a moment of poetic justice. After her time at Hogwarts, she is appointed head of the Muggleborn Registration Commission, where she continues her campaign of oppression. But her cruelty finally catches up with her. During the Battle of Hogwarts, she is captured by the Centaurs and subjected to the same kind of fear and humiliation she inflicted on others. While the details of her punishment are left to the imagination, it's clear that she is no longer in control. The tyrant in pink is finally brought to justice, her reign of terror brought to an end. Annie Wilkes, the central antagonist of Stephen King's Misery, is a character who embodies the darkest extremes of obsession, control, and psychological manipulation. On the surface, Annie looks like an ordinary middle-aged woman. She is a former nurse with a love for romance novels and seemingly kind and harmless. But beneath this facade lies a deeply disturbed individual, a woman whose obsession with author Paul Sheldon and his fictional character, Misery Chastain, drives her to acts of unspeakable cruelty. Annie rescues Paul Sheldon, the celebrated author, from a car accident, and at first she seems like a lonely woman who acts all caring and motherly. With a gentle voice and calm manner, she insists that she is Paul Sheldon's #1 fan, and her admiration for his work seemingly innocent. But beneath that sweet act of kindness lurks something monstrous, something insidious. Annie is not just obsessed. She's completely consumed by her love for Paul's work, to the point where she has lost touch with reality, and Paul doesn't realize this until it's way too late. Annie isn't motivated by greed or revenge. She doesn't kill for fun, and she's not looking for wealth or power. Her motives are way creepier. She seeks control. She doesn't want to kill Paul Sheldon. She wants to possess him, to control his mind, his words, his entire reality. She nurses him back to health not because she's kind, but because she needs him. This is the only way for her to feel good about herself. And when Paul doesn't live up to her expectations and dares to go against the story she's created in her mind, her nice act disappears and the real Annie Wilkes comes out. Annie's violence isn't random or impulsive. It's careful and planned. She doesn't just lose her temper and attack Paul in a rage. Instead, she hurts him in ways that are precise and thought out, which makes her even scarier. When Paul defies her, she doesn't kill him. She breaks him. She cripples him, making sure he can't run away or fight back. She wants him completely under her control. The infamous hobbling scene where she smashes Paul's ankles with a sledgehammer isn't just about causing pain. It's a message. You're not going anywhere. You're mine now. She's making sure he never try to leave or disobey her again. Annie's past makes her even more terrifying. She has a long history of violence and manipulation. When she worked as a nurse, she killed several patients, but in her mind, she wasn't murdering them. She was helping them. She thought she was easing their suffering, setting them free. Her twisted way of thinking shows that she doesn't see people as real individuals. To her, they aren't people with their own thoughts and feelings. She doesn't understand real love or care. To Annie, Love isn't about connection. It's about control. Annie Wilkes is scary because she feels real. She is not a monster from a nightmare or a legend. She could be anyone, a neighbor, a nurse, or just a fan. She hides in plain sight, her madness covered by a normal life. Her insanity doesn't come from magic or some great evil. It comes from loneliness, obsession, and a desperate need for control. It is raw, human, and dangerously real. Paul Sheldon isn't just trapped physically, he's trapped mentally too. Annie doesn't just keep him locked in a room. She gets inside his head and takes over his will. She forces him to rewrite his own book, shaping it the way she wants. Bit by bit, she takes away his control until he starts questioning what's real. But the scary part? She needs him just as much as he fears her. He is her purpose, her proof that she matters. Without him, she's nothing. And that makes her even more dangerous, because she will do whatever it takes to keep him from leaving. Annie Wilkes isn't a typical villain. She doesn't want money or power. She's something much scarier. Someone who loves too much, needs too much, and refuses to let go of the world she's created in her mind. And if anything threatens that world, she will destroy it. She is obsession at its worst, the dark side of fandom taken way too far. That's what makes her so terrifying. Because she could be real. She could be out there, waiting, watching, smiling, hammer in hand, whispering, "I'm your #1 fan." Dr. Hannibal Lecter, the brilliant psychiatrist and cannibalistic serial killer featured in Thomas Harris's The Silence of the Lambs, is a figure of chilling fascination and profound horror. Lecter is not merely a killer. He is an artist of death, a master of psychological torment wrapped in the guise of refinement and intellect. He is not driven by impulse or rage, nor by vengeance or ideology. His violence is measured, exquisite, orchestrated with the precision of a surgeon and the creativity of a maestro. He does not simply kill, he creates, shaping death into an art form, his victims reduced to compositions of horror that only he truly understands. Lecter is not a monster in the traditional sense. He does not lumber through shadows, nor does he revel in chaos like a mindless beast. He is cultured, sophisticated, charming. He appreciates fine wine, classical music, the nuances of a well-prepared meal. He can discuss philosophy, psychology, and art with the ease of a scholar, his mind a fortress of knowledge and restraint. Yet, beneath the veneer of civility lies something far darker, something ancient, predatory, and insatiable. He does not need to scream or threaten. His presence alone is enough to suffocate, his voice a whisper that coils around the mind like a serpent. Unlike brutish killers driven by impulse, Lecter's violence is controlled, almost ritualistic. His murders are not acts of passion, but of calculated necessity. His victims chosen with meticulous precision. He does not kill at random. He selects, he evaluates, he decides who is worthy of his attention. Those he deems rude, ignorant, or aesthetically offensive are disposed of with a chilling elegance. He does not merely consume their flesh, he elevates it, transforming it into a delicacy, making them a part of something greater than themselves. To Lecter, this is not madness, it is transcendence, a form of justice administered by a mind that operates on an entirely different level from the rest of humanity. Perhaps his most terrifying quality is his mind, an intellect so vast and labyrinthine that it becomes its own form of weaponry. He does not need brute force to dominate. His words alone can dismantle a person's psyche, peeling back their defenses layer by layer until they are laid bare before him, vulnerable and exposed. He does not simply converse, he dissects, his voice a scalpel that cuts deeper than any blade. In his presence, no secret remains hidden, no fear remains unspoken. He sees into the soul, and he does so with an eerie sense of pleasure. His relationship with Clarice Starling, the young FBI trainee sent to interview him, is a study in psychological manipulation. He does not simply answer her questions, he plays with her, leading her down pathways of thought she never dared to explore. He forces her to confront her own demons, to relive the trauma of her past, all while maintaining an air of almost paternal amusement, and yet, for all his cruelty, there is an undeniable fascination between them. Lecter recognizes something in Starling, a sharpness, a hunger for understanding that mirrors his own. He toys with her not just to torment, but to test, to shape her into something stronger, something more worthy of his attention. Unlike the other villains of The Silence of the Lambs, Lecter does not need to wield a weapon to be terrifying. He is already inside the minds of those who face him, coiling through their thoughts, whispering doubts and fears until they begin to question their own reality. He does not chase or stalk, he waits, a presence so chillingly composed that his stillness is more unnerving than any act of violence. He can be locked behind thick walls, restrained by chains, and still, he wins. His power does not come from physicality, but from the sheer force of his intelligence. But Hannibal Lecter is more than just a brilliant mind. He is a predator in the purest sense. He is not plagued by guilt or remorse, nor does he adhere to conventional morality. He does not see himself as evil, nor does he seek redemption. He is what he is, unapologetically and without shame. He does not feel compelled to justify his actions because, in his mind, there is nothing to justify. To him, the world is a place of hierarchy, of natural selection, perfection, and he stands at its pinnacle. And yet, there is a paradox within Lecter, a strange elegance that sets him apart from the common serial killer. He is not crude, not vulgar, not reckless. His violence is never senseless, never messy. He does not revel in chaos for its own sake. His killings are performances, each one executed with the same care he would apply to a fine meal or a piece of classical music. He is a monster, yes, but a refined one, a creature of taste and control. His escape from confinement is a testament to his brilliance. He does not break free through sheer force. He orchestrates his liberation, outthinking his captors, anticipating their every move. When the moment arrives, he strikes with an efficiency that is as breathtaking as it is horrifying. He does not run in panic. He moves with the patience of a predator, each action deliberate, each step a part of his grand design. By the time his captors realize what has happened, it is already too late. He has vanished, slipping into the shadows like a phantom, leaving only carnage in his wake. Patrick Bateman, the protagonist of Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho, is a character who embodies the darkest extremes of consumerism, narcissism, and psychopathy. On the surface, Bateman is the epitome of 1980s yuppie success, a wealthy, handsome, and impeccably dressed investment banker living in Manhattan. But beneath this polished exterior lies a void, a complete lack of empathy, morality, or humanity. Bateman doesn't kill because he has to or because he's getting revenge. He murders because he can. The boundaries that define the average person, conscience, empathy, fear, simply do not apply to him. He's impulsive and calculating, his violence both random and carefully planned. One minute he's eating at fancy Manhattan restaurants, talking about food. The next he's cutting someone up, enjoying the destruction. There's no remorse, no hesitation, only a growing need for cruelty. His world is all about fake perfection. He wears the best clothes, uses the most expensive products, and eats the trendiest food at the best places. Everything in his life is about looking good and keeping up the illusion that he's in control. But underneath, he's empty, defined only by what he buys. He's obsessed with shallow things, always wants more, and is constantly angry. He can't tell what's real and what's fake anymore. What makes Bateman really scary isn't just his violence, but how normal it seems to him. His murders happen alongside boring conversations about business cards, pop music, and skincare. He talks about horrible acts of violence in the same way he talks about a Whitney Houston album. There's no build-up. His killings are as casual as going to the gym or eating an overpriced meal. This mix of extreme violence and everyday things makes him even more horrifying. Bateman's descent into madness is weird. He knows he's messed up, but is also totally disconnected from it. He confesses his crimes repeatedly, to colleagues, to bartenders, to his own attorney, but no one listens. No one believes him. In a world obsessed with appearances, where being rich is seen as being good, no one sees Bateman's true nature. He's invisible. This detachment from reality makes him feel even more powerful. If no one sees him for what he is, does he even exist? His violence gets worse and more ridiculous. He doesn't just kill, he destroys and humiliates his victims. Women are toys, men are obstacles, and animals are just for fun. His crimes have no limits, and yet they're done calmly, almost mechanically. He doesn't kill in a frenzy or out of rage. He kills because it's part of who he is, as natural as breathing. Maybe the scariest thing about Bateman is his emptiness. Unlike other fictional killers who have a reason, Bateman has nothing. He's not trying to create chaos or anything. He just is, a product of a world that rewards greed and shallowness. His violence isn't a rebellion against society, it's a result of it. He has no inner life, no real connections, and no ability to love or grieve. Even his pleasures are meaningless. Sex is about power, drugs are about control, and murder is just a distraction. Even though he's so messed up, Bateman is still relatable in a disturbing way. He worries about social status, obsesses over little things, and wants people to approve of him. He's not some distant monster. He reflects the culture he lives in, an extreme version of its values. This is the real horror of American Psycho. The realization that Bateman isn't an exception, but a symptom. He's what happens when consumerism and vanity are allowed to run wild. As the story goes on, Bateman's reality falls apart. He's losing his mind, acting more erratically, and committing more obvious crimes. But even as his world goes crazy, nothing changes. There's no justice, no moment of truth. He stays in his world of luxury, untouched and unpunished. His final words, "This is not an exit," are maybe the most haunting of all. There's no escape, no resolution. He'll continue, unnoticed and unchallenged, a killer hiding in plain sight. Patrick Bateman isn't just a serial killer. He's the ultimate emptiness, a mirror showing the darkest parts of modern life. He's the fear that beneath all our wealth and carefully created identities, there's nothing. He's the horror of looking in the mirror and seeing a stranger. And worst of all, he's still out there, his mask still on, waiting for the next thrill, the next victim.